It's looking more and more likely that Massachusetts' recreational marijuana law could be a lot different than the one we, 1.8 million people, approved in November, when and if it's finally implemented. A very different marijuana bill came out of committee yesterday, which includes a maximum 28% overall tax on recreational marijuana. That's compared to the 12% tax voters passed. It would also grant local city councils and boards of selectmen the authority to limit or ban retail stores or cultivation. In the original version passed by the voters, that power went exclusively to the voters. And the new bill will put the Cannabis Control Commission in charge of both recreational and medical marijuana. Right now, the Department of Public Health oversees the medical. Lawmakers are aiming to get a final bill in the governor's desk by July 1st, but today's scheduled vote in the House was postponed for what the Speaker called, quote, procedural issues. Joining me are Jim Borghesani, spokesman for Yes on 4. That was the group that sponsored the original ballot question. Good to see you, Jim. And Representative Aaron Vega, Democrat from Holyoke, who serves on the Marijuana Policy Committee that advanced the bill yesterday. Pleasure to meet you, Representative. Thanks for being here. We also invited the House chair of that committee, which proposed these changes, but he was unavailable. Representative, you voted yes, but said you would ultimately vote no if the exact same bill was the final version in the House. So then why'd you vote yes?
That's a good question to start off with.
That's why I asked.
I like it. It's a good call. That's why you're in that part of the seat. It's a procedural thing. And so I had a bunch of amendments. I know a lot of my colleagues had amendments. The only way we could talk about those amendments was
to get it moving.
What
in particular troubled you about the revised version of the House? What are the one or two things
at that point,
upset you most?
The top three where it was definitely was the tax rate. And the possibility of it being compounded and the possibility of being 28% at point of sale, which I still think is too high. And I think that the local control, which you pointed out, is a concern of mine, and that we didn't take any opportunity to work on expungement of past records of those nonviolent marijuana charges.
And 28 is too high because you're worried about the black market. A lot of people are saying is.
Yep.
So what's your problem? Is your problem that they made any changes at all? Where are you guys on this?
Look, we're trying to be reasonable, but the bill that was passed in November was a very well-written bill. We said all along we don't need any major changes. Some technical things that help the language, that's fine with us. But what came out yesterday is egregious legislative overreach, and we saw the backlash to that yesterday. They pulled it, and they did a good thing by pulling it because it's a terrible bill.
You used to use the expression we didn't see any. I mean, you don't own this bill. This is a law, as if it were passed by the legislature.
Right.
I assume you agree. One of your colleagues was here a few months ago, and he said originally, in the beginning of the discussion, we don't want any changes because the voters have spoken. It's a law. I assume if they can make the law better, you'd support things that are better, right?
If they can make it better, we would support things that are better. We do support language, for instance, from the Secretary of State's office that clarifies language around enacting bans at the voter level. But we want to see that stay with the voters.
How about any tax increase?
We want to see it stay at 12%.
Why?
If there's a tax, because we think that's the right amount to start at, to undercut the illicit market and to pay for the administrative structure. We think 12% would do that.
You know, the Speaker of the House spoke after this caucus you Democrats had, and then the withdrawal. And here's what Bob DeLeo had to say. Please listen.
I think there was some general cleanup stuff relative to language, the meaning of certain phrases, and things of that sort. I thought the overall bill was terrific.
What does that mean? He didn't think the overall bill was terrific, correct?
No, I don't think so.
I know you're not a spokesman, but
I can't speak for any of my colleagues. I mean, you try to build consensus on any bill, right, to get something passed. Right? These omnibus bills are always going to have something in it you like, something you're not so thrilled about, but you try to build consensus with 160 members. And I think the issues is that this is sort of new to a lot of people on the committee. Like, okay, this is a lot of new stuff we're trying to digest. The makeup of the CCC, I think, was a good move. The
Cannabis Control Commission.
Exactly. Moving to 5 members. But its authority was so much broadened out that we need some time to digest
this. Okay,
so
was this a raucous, I don't mean this is a pun, caucus? I mean, was it raucous?
It was a little bit raucous. It was a little bit different than anything I'd seen. I mean, a bunch of us said the same thing that I said, that I'm voting for this only to move it forward.
Did anybody say that? Are you aware that the voters approved this because we didn't do anything on the issue?
The only reason we're talking about this is because the voters
No,
did
but
this,
did
right?
anybody acknowledge that in this caucus, that the voters, for better or worse, and some may think worse, you think better, the voters have spoken.
Right.
Hello, goodbye.
Right. Exactly. No, I
agree.
Did
anybody say that?
Not yesterday, but during hearings we have. Absolutely, absolutely.
So what do you expect? What happens?
Well, we think the next step
in the House. Stay with the House for a minute.
Stay with the House. We think hopefully they come out with a bill that's more reasonable. a bill that doesn't, for instance, make a person that wants to provide a service to a marijuana facility undergo a background check and potentially licensure. Somebody that wants to plow the snow in a parking lot of a marijuana facility could, under this bill, have to be licensed and undergo a background check.
Did he pay?
That's
do you
ridiculous.
think he pulled this thing yesterday, he being DeLeo, because he didn't have the votes? Did he not have the votes?
I think it was questionable whether they had the votes.
And you agree with that, I assume?
I think he didn't have the votes, and I think they realized the flaws in the bill. If they had gone forward with the compounding interest on this, applying a tax at every level of transaction, we could be in the 80%
Well, they admit
range.
But the guy we
it was a
invited,
mistake,
the chair,
but
they
letting
know
it
it was a
move
mistake.
forward,
They
right.
want to fix it.
But if it was just a technical error, that's right. They could have just filed an amendment.
Who are
It's
they
beyond.
doing this? This is for both of you. Who is behind these? Let's assume they're brilliant ideas. I don't understand who is saying, let's raise the tax to 28%. Let's take the power away from the voters. That's really popular, and give it to elected. Who's behind all these changes?
I think there's just a general fear about dealing with marijuana in general, right? So here we are going to be with the fifth or sixth state, to venture into the adult use marijuana industry. We're worried about what the feds are going to do. I think that they're trying to cover all their bases and make it so stringent that it looks like it's not just a free market.
Yeah, and then let's talk about one of the things I always thought was the purpose of a speaker or any leaders, committee chairs, is don't make your members take a tough vote if it's going to be for nothing. Let me read to you what the Senate chair said about the House bill. This is Pat Jalen from Somerville. Right. This proposed bill, this is pretty unequivocal, directly assaults the will of the voters and is a prescription for increasing the illicit markets. The Senate president thinks the tax is too high. So why do your leaders want you to take a vote that is going to upset a lot of people who believe in small d democracy, even if they hate the marijuana law, by the way, but they believe in direct democracy, when the Senate is apparently going to undo whatever you do anyway? I don't get it.
Well, I think there's as you know, the process, right? So no one wants to talk about the process too much, but the House is going to have a version, the Senate's going to have a version. There's going to be this conference committee. So perhaps there's things in there that they're putting in there as leverage. I say, but I'm not saying.
I had a reporter ask me yesterday, why do they do it like this? And because
they can.
Because they can. That's the answer.
One last thing on the tax thing. I think there's a consensus, at least in this room. The voters voted that they have the power to ban things from communities, give it with them. On the tax front, if one of the legislators came to you and said, okay, I agree with both of you, 28 cents is too high, like Rosenberg seems to think, like Jalen seems to think. But how about 15? How about 16? Something, it's maybe not perfect, but in the words of Barack Obama, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Right. Are you reasonable or are you rigid in
We'll
this
be
thing?
reasonable to a modest increase.
Yeah. You would be
yes,
willing.
Yes, we will.
Last question
that
for
was
you.
my sweet spot, in that 15 to 18.
So some increase.
Yeah.
And by the way, we told that to the legislators we met with. We said, look, we're going to hit the wall on various things. Right. A modest increase in the taxes would not be one of them.
We can always look down the road and increase it down the road.
Exactly. Last thing for you. Your mayor, Mayor Moore, says he hopes that Holyoke becomes the recreational pot hub. You're laughing. Do you support him in that?
I support him, in the concept that this is new manufacturing, right? The grow facilities, the manufacture of marijuana into these various products. This is the new manufacturing, right? We all talk about manufacturing.
So is the answer yes?
The answer is yes.
I figured. Jim, it's nice to see you. Representative, it's very good to meet you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And by the way, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this when the House Speaker and the Senate President both join me. That'll be just a few days before that July 1st deadline on June 27th.